This week on Badgerpod NerdCast, the Badgers discuss the Big Lebowski, female Ghostbusters, and Anne Leckie's Ancillary Justice. Be sure to tune in.
Hello and welcome to Badgerpod NerdCast 7. Today's topics are the Big Lebowski, Ancillary Justice, and the female Ghostbusters. And we have a full house today. We have Mike, Dr. Randercam. We have Karen Strawn, Girl Writes What. We have Jess Kay. We have Lauren Brooks. And we have Rachel Edwards. So why don't I pull in Mike? Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself and pimp something that you've done recently that's interesting.
Oh God. I do cartoons and poetry and music and all kinds of useless but interesting things on the internet. And only on the internet. You know who I am by now, I think.
Yeah, well, people keep asking for intros because they don't know who we are, so I figured I'd give them some. You can check out Mike's work at the channel, I believe, Dark Cheese TV.
That's one of them,
yeah.
That's the one you can spell.
Yeah, and most of you know who Karen is, so we're just going to skip right over her. And Jess Kay. Come on, tell us a bit about yourself, Jess.
Hi. No pressure. Not really that interesting. Wife,
you've created,
mother of little man who is going to be inspiring my next kind of series of reviews that I'm really going to get to soon, I promise, on Disney shows, because that's all I see all day, every day, is Disney.
It's an unending yes. March of Disney.
When you have a 2-year-old in the house who runs the streaming on the television, that's all you get to see.
Oh, man. I knew every word of Toy Story by heart and several other Disney movies when my kids were little.
Karen,
so.
we're skipping you.
Well, I forced him to watch The Rescuers yesterday, which was fantastic. So.
Yeah, and also Jess Kay had created, I believe you founded or you helped found I Don't Need Feminism, the Facebook page?
I'd call it co-founded. A friend of mine, Denise, created it and then brought me on a couple months later, and then kind of worked it up after we lost the first version to trolls.
Oh, to feminists, probably. Okay, so yes. Lauren Brooks, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
I'm pretty much no one who hates everything that feminism has brought to the table so far. I'd like to clarify and say that, I do agree that feminists have, done some good things, but in the overall scheme of things, just really negative results have come from what it's done. I'm a Twitter bitch. I bitch on Twitter. I freely express my opinion, and I would like to say that I am a true honey badger because I don't give a shit. Just spell my name right.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And Rachel, why don't you give us a brief overview of yours?
Yeah, most people have no idea who I am even now. They think that somehow something happened and Allison turned into me. I don't. Yeah, they're like, oh wait, are you Allison? No, I'm not Allison. But actually, I started blogging a couple years. Well, actually, it's probably been like 1 or 2 years ago. The Badgers asked for me, and they're like, okay, we need help with the blog, so I show up. So I've been working on the blog. I do show notes. I do a bunch of stuff behind the curtain, behind the scenes, and now I host Honey Badger Radio and this. But I'm letting Allison do it because my brain's completely dead today, all kerbobbled. But yeah, I'm running around like a chicken with its head cut off half the time, and I blog on a little Tumblr page. I think it's like Naughty Nerdess. Yeah, naughtynerdess.tumblr.com.
It's good that you know the name of your own blog.
No. It's just I'm trying to remember whether it was tumblr.com/naughtynerdess or the alternate. I can't even remember the way fucking Tumblr works right now. And this is what happens when I'm in art mode instead of my regular mode, which is write mode.
Yes. And I'm actually getting Rachel to help me with the flats on my webcomics, so she's doing the flattening.
Yeah. I'm doing the flat
dance.
The flat dance. Doing the flats. Do the flats. Do the flats. But yeah, I've been doing other things. Just a lot of and writing fucked up Harry Potter erotica. I'm working on chapter 2. I'll get to that.
Yeah, and when Rachel finally finishes chapter 2, we will get Karen to read more in the sultry tones, the sultry vocal styling.
Well, there's going to be a wonderful lesbian tentacle sex scene in the first paragraph. So something to look forward to.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you guys volunteering me for?
You know you love it, Karen.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on. Well, I should. Okay, my name is Allison Tiemann. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Sad news. Robin Williams died, and I know that a lot of the people on this show have been impacted by that. That's sad news. So I actually handed Mike over to Rachel to talk about that because I really don't have a lot to say. So go ahead, Rachel.
I think a lot of people from my generation have seen, Robin Williams as sort of a father figure. He ended up being in all these movies as the father figure, the father you wanted, the cool guy, he was so silly. He was like a big kid, like a big cartoon character. You saw him as the genie, just and in so many serious roles, he did such a good job. And say what you will about his comedy, he did really great in these serious roles, and it didn't matter who he was playing, a part of him always seeped through, and you understood that you loved that guy. And the people who interacted with him through his life, and they speak about him, what they say is that he loved people, he loved his fans, he would go out of his way to help people whenever he could, and he was always just giving and giving and giving of himself while just completely dying on the inside. And it's such a tragedy that we lost him so soon, and the way that we did lose him was just disheartening. And especially because, I often try to talk about suicide in a way that I really hope that people can help others to get help, to be able to talk people down from things like this, because it really is a serious issue. And to think that, one of the people I looked up to growing up has died in this way is very, very sad and heartbreaking. I think everybody probably feels a bit like that right now.
Yeah, I know how I feel. I'm feeling actually the exact opposite of it. What I'm usually trying to do is how do we get this into the silly place from that? It's really hard.
Oh, well,
that's a tall order.
Oh, it is. But,
go ahead, Laura.
No, I think he would have appreciated that. I think him and his entire comedic nature would have appreciated people taking light and reflecting back on the positive memories that he had and that he gave everyone.
Yeah. It's just a tall order to get into the silly place from this particular spot. So why don't we just move on to Ancillary Justice and just get that over with? It feels appropriate to go from someone's death to this book. This book of bookness. Okay, well, so I wrote up a review, and I just want to warn everybody who's going to be listening, this is a partial and very shitty review of Ancillary Justice by me. Chapter 1.
Oh, no.
The protagonist finds an unconscious person. The author is quick to establish his male. I know from Cliff Notes that this individual is supposed to be incompetent. The male character spends the rest of at least the next few chapters being incoherent and annoying. He is apparently a drug addict. The protagonist doesn't like him, yet taking great pains to keep him alive. I don't really understand why. I know from the cliff notes that he is important somehow, and that he's also annoying. For an author challenging the idea of using gendered pronouns, this particular author is certainly investing in making sure we know who is male or female. I guess it's hard to rely on lazy stereotypes without gendered pronouns. The tension between her desire to rely on said lazy stereotypes about men and her desire to keep up her gimmick is just about the only tension in this book so far. Chapter 2. Apparently the protagonist is a hive mind and also a ship. The ship describes the vacuum of space as bitter cold. Vacuum is an insulator, so it wouldn't feel bitter cold, more like uncomfortably stuffy. At some point, there's a kid playing a song, and some walking around a town. Also, the uniforms of this galactic empire are uncomfortable. You would think that a galactic empire could fix something like that. I literally do not know what else happens in this chapter. I read it a few days ago, and I've forgotten it. I'm guessing not much.
Wow.
Chapter 3. The protagonist rents a vehicle. The vehicle is stranded. She shoots 4 people who come after her to rob or kill her. The author was careful to establish earlier that these 4 people were male, so we don't have to care that they get shot. She has succeeded. I don't care. Perhaps too much, because I don't care at all. Though the one question burns in my mind. How does snow become moss-streaked? Is there a form of snow-eating moss on this world? Chapter 4. Still no sign of a plot. Feel exhausted and confused and itchy. Lots of characters in chapter, but no relationships. The author explicitly says there are relationships, animities, friendships, etc. But these elements do not seem to affect the actions of the characters. Like myths, these emotions, connections are only spoken of, never directly witnessed. Lots of bureaucratic negotiations, rituals, talk of fishing rights. The best place to dig up tubers. Also, there were some guns found underwater. The talk of guns inspires a brief spark of interest in me, which is quickly doused by the excessive descriptions of tea, social graces, and relish. Relish! Always the relish. Chapter 5. No sign of a plot. And I don't care about these characters because they don't seem to care about anything. Chapter... ... How did this win rewards? Win awards. Okay, that's as far as I can get with this. Please come back on.
Oh, fuck.
Sorry, are you
I think we
okay?
just lost all. I think we all just lost most of our viewership.
Are you okay, Allison? Are you okay?
Yeah, I think I'm okay. I'm
Yeah,
recovering.
it's okay. Allison's gonna be fine.
We're here for you.
Yeah, we love you, Allison.
Okay, so this was a really difficult book to read.
Wow.
I hope
Yes.
I portrayed that accurately.
Very, very effectively, actually. So.
Okay.
What struck me from reading this book is this person is really trying desperately to do something interesting with the use of the. She doesn't use any other pronoun but she. You could maybe what ended up happening is I asked myself what kind of culture would get rid of the he pronoun, but only leave she, and I kept trying to figure out what kind of culture would end with not gender neutral, but only she. So part of the problem with that gimmick is it wasn't thought through. Like the author did not think it through. There's no sense that there's really any understanding of why a culture would have dropped the he pronoun. Did they think that she could encompass both he and she? In which case, the feminine loses its specialness. It just becomes a generic gender neutral. Then why not just use a gender neutral? Like, why use she? If you're trying to retain the specialness of the feminine and apply it to men, what kind of culture would do that? You know, like the unique identity of the feminine and apply it to men. What kind of culture would think that made sense?
Oh, jeez. Is that a rhetorical question?
It could be rhetorical. If you have an answer, like, feel free to jump in.
I would say this probably.
Lauren, you're getting a bit of an echo there, but can you mute?
Oh, okay. Because I wasn't sure whether she was saying, because I was gonna. Okay, anyway, but I would think that this is a direct result of that phenomena that happens when there's something. It doesn't make any sense, and there are two kinds of responses to that. When there's a book that's just a bunch of garbage, one of two things happen. They either say, this is horseshit, and put the book down, or they start to try and say, no, there's got to be some kind of deeper meaning behind this that I'm not quite grasping. And then they start projecting shit onto it and say, this is the best book I've ever read. This is about all kinds of important things that directly apply to me. And
well, I can actually give an interesting anecdote from psychology. They did an experiment, or a bunch of psychologists did experiments on people, as they are wont to do. And what they did is they ended up taking these two groups of people, and they put them, and they did for like an hour, an incredibly menial task. Like just basically putting something in a box and then taking it out again for an hour. And the first group, they paid them $20 for it. And then they said that when they go out to the waiting room and see the next group that's coming in, the group that they paid $20, they told them, tell that group that it was totally and utterly fulfilling what they ended up doing for that hour, which was totally wasn't. And the group went out and they lied to the people waiting in the waiting room. And then at the end, the psychologist gave them a survey, and they asked them what they thought of what they had gone through, the experience they had gone through. And the group that got paid $20 said, it was awful. It was boring. It was totally a waste of time. Even though they had said to the people in the waiting room, oh no, it's totally fulfilling, it's fun, it's great, you're going to enjoy it. Now, the next group that they sent in, they got them to do exactly the same thing, but they only paid them $1 for an hour of putting something in a box and then taking it out again. And then they instructed that group to go to the people in the waiting room and tell them, oh, it was fantastic, it was wonderful, it was great. And that group that got paid did the same thing. They went out to the waiting room, they told them, oh, it was fantastic, it was wonderful, it was great. And then the psychologist gave them a review of the experience, or asked them what they thought of what they did. And on that those people, that group, said it was great. It was a fulfilling task. Putting something in and out of a box was a fulfilling task for an hour. Totally fulfilling. I thought it was great. And what the psychologist said, why they said that, was because it was so. They received no compensation. They didn't receive enough compensation, so they had to create a narrative in which what they had done was compensation as well. So they essentially lied to themselves because it was so shit. And I think that this book, people will read it because it's been hyped so much, so they'll read it, and then they'll lie to themselves about why they read it. Now, having said that, there is, like, the writing isn't that bad. It's just, there is no tension in the entire book. Like, there's no sense of conflict between any of the characters. And there isn't even a sense of companionship between any of the characters. And it's at least so far, and it's impossible to give a shit about a world in which nobody gives a shit. Well, maybe it is, but not this world anyway. But anyway, Mike, do you have anything to add to that? Come on, I'm pulling you in.
To Ancillary Justice.
Ancillary Justice, yeah. Or did you just glaze over during that entire thing?
No, I've been trying to pay attention. I don't read books at the best of times, and you've just described something frankly nightmarish. So no, I don't have much to add to that. You mentioned it didn't have anything in the way of a backstory. There was no explanation as to how it sort of got to this stage, which is sort of telling in a way that there's no predictive elements to it. There's no sort of relation to real life. There's no sort of how did this happen. It's just someone's ideological jerk-off in some way. Is that roughly accurate?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh.
it feels definitely like that, and I think the premise you could have gone somewhere with it if you had more of a philosophical depth to handle the idea. But why even the philosophical depth to even ask the question, why would a culture drop the word he? What does that imply? Not just as a gimmick, but how would such a culture evolve, and why would it have created such a thing? Like, I mean, you could have looked at our linguistic history. We essentially dropped the special. We actually essentially did drop he in our linguistic history, because in a lot of ways, because we originally had a word just for men. Like, if you had called women by it, people would have looked at you weirdly. Whereas our word man is actually literally does mean adult humans of unspecified gender. Originally, we would have used wereman for adult man and withman for adult woman. And man was just of gender neutral, but we did drop the were from our language, which is where werewolf comes from. We dropped the were from our language, so we decided that we didn't need he. We only needed gender neutral and female. But here we have a culture that hasn't just dropped he, it's also dropped the gender neutral, so it's all female. So everybody is female. But what kind of culture would do that? Like, I'm
a created culture.
A created culture for a specific. Well, but I think you could.
Yeah.
If you were smart enough and you were interested in the philosophy enough and you actually looked deeply enough into the issue, I think you could probably pull out something that didn't feel completely tacked on, but this did. Anyway, let's move on.
Oh gosh. Well, I could read the bit about the dude.
Yeah, let's go to the dude.
Guys, right now I'm just gonna try and get a little bit comfy because that's just the way the dude does things, Okay, so anyway, the dude abides. Sometimes there's a man who is simply the man for his time and place. That's the dude, in a nutshell. He is only a part of the comedy of errors that is the Big Lebowski. On the surface, the movie is about a case of mistaken identity that leads to the death of a friend. But lurking beneath the surface is a movie about men and the state of masculinity preceding second-wave feminism. A world in which gender roles have changed for women, but the expectations for men have remained the same. It is about how this inequity has emasculated men and taken everything from them. You have Walter Sobchak, who is a veteran who is divorced, but clings to anything still tying him to his ex-wife. You have Jeffrey Lebowski, the millionaire, who has been metaphorically castrated through the loss of his ability to walk after serving in Korea, and has nothing left but the appearance of power. Women rule his life in the form of a trophy wife that spends all his money and causes him nothing but trouble, and a daughter who lives the life of a feminist artist that gives him an allowance to live on. These men are ruled by their need for female approval and have lived their lives trying to meet the unrealistic expectations for men and masculinity. In contrast to those characters, you have the dude, who is the antithesis of these things. He has few expectations and lives life in the way that makes sense to him. He only pursues money as is needed and values his relationships with other people over things like power or status. He is fine just existing. And if there was a message in this film, it is that when the dude loses, he still wins, because he is not governed by the expectations that other men play into. His expectations are so low that as long as he has a place to stay and no one is trying to hurt him, he considers everything to be fine. In fact, most of the negative events unfolding in this story come not from him, but from people motivated by greed and power. These people have a standard of what makes a man, and what one must do to be a man, whereas the dude feels that a man need only identify as a male to be a man. The dude is fine with having nothing. So the only threat that can be thrown at him is castration. The only thing that can scare him is the realization of his own mortality. However, these corrupt individuals cannot castrate the dude. physically or metaphorically, because he doesn't play by their rules. They cannot shame him into submission or force him to be what he isn't, because he doesn't play their game. The differences between men and women in this movie is best displayed with the dream sequences. Even in the midst of a fantasy where he can be anyone or anything, the dude dreams not of fame or fortune, but of being able to approach a powerful goddess as a sex god, in the form of a porn star. But then this vision goes sour as almost a punishment for his admiration of the female form, which comes as the fear of castration in the form of the nihilists with large pairs of scissors. In short, Bunny and Maud have been elevated to the status of powerful goddesses, and the men are left to deal with a society that expects them to fill certain roles while at the same time being told that men are no longer needed in this capacity. These men are powerless to their whims and can only lay back and tolerate what these women dish out. The man that survives his encounters with this goddesses and lives is the dude, because the dude abides. He's a survivor, and readily accepts that he cannot defeat these people, and instead decides just not to play these games of power and ego. You cannot shame or emasculate a man who derives his identity from non-traditional criteria. He is a man whether or not you accept him, and he takes everything as it comes. He is neither hero nor villain, and better than both, he is the dude, no more and no less, a man for all time.
Well, that's a certain improvement over Ancillary Justice.
Well, let's talk about this.
No, you got some interesting insights there, but I'm gonna Jess, are you there, Jess?
Yes, ma'am.
You haven't said anything. Do you want me to give you a few minutes to compose yourself, and then I'll pull you in?
Yeah, go to something and I can
just
the only original thought I have. Like,
Go
I only
ahead.
have one original thought about it. Well, it's kind of a tack on too, but I just thought it was really telling that, living in this world of, we're not supposed to expect, rigid roles of women, but, repeatedly we saw the dude being criticized because he doesn't work, because that's what men are expected to do. Men need to work. So, multiple characters, what do you do? What do do you work? And just the shame that was put on him, not that it bothered him because he's the dude, but, them trying to shame him for not, working and utilizing, himself as a tool.
No, that actually is an interesting point, and you're right, because and I think it ties into what Rachel is saying. Rachel,
Yep.
You said that he just abides. That's
Exactly.
He exists, and that's what he is.
He survives. He is a perfect neutral. He is good, but it's from this position of not really pursuing anything insidious. He just likes to be. He's just there.
He's the everyman. So that's a large sort of difference between American cinema and sort of classic European theatre. In Shakespeare, the everyman isn't the star of the show. He isn't the protagonist. He's a guy who comes on and explains to the audience what's happening, and he's also part of the action. He's the everyday Joe. He's the guy who he's the go-between. But it's only in American sort of cinema and literature where they actually take the everyman and make him the protagonist, make him the star of the show. And, the Big Lebowski is very much the pinnacle of that in the way. It's a deep exploration of the everyman. What's actually going on in the everyman's world,
Yeah, absolutely. And what happens is they do constantly, he asks, he's like, okay, the Chinaman peed on my rug, I want to go get my rug, and that's what he cares about. He doesn't give a shit about any of this other stuff. He's like, oh yeah, well, you're giving me money? Okay, well, that's just going to pay the rent for a while.
Well,
and maybe
you tied the room together.
Yeah,
Right,
it's tied the room together. That was the logic.
It tied the room together.
And the Chinaman peed on his rug. He peed on his fucking rug.
But the Chinaman is not the appropriate nomenclature. We were reminded.
Yeah, Asian American, please. Yeah.
Asian American.
Oh god, I love the Jesus though. The Jesus. The Jesus is like the perfect villain in all this. He's like, I'm gonna fuck you Saturday. Like,
I do like that character.
What?
He's a villain? There's a villain?
Yeah, he's the guy. Okay, basically, they describe him as well, he's kind of like a, I don't know. Basically, they say, okay,
he's like a bowling tango dancer.
Yeah, he's just like, he's like the only thing that they can do to really beat him or anything or say anything ill of him is they're like, dude, he got in trouble for exposing himself to an 8-year-olds, dude. And that's the only thing they can say, because like the man can fucking roll, man. And it's like, yeah, well, he's a fucking pervert. He's a pederast. And that's all they can say ill about him. He's just really fucking good at bowling.
Well, that's a lot of ill, though, you know.
Oh, absolutely. But we don't know how much of that is just
bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah, is bullshit. We don't know how much of that is him just bullshitting or what. And the thing about that movie is that there's so many things in there that are consistently involved with men's rights. And it's just, it really is about men. And it's not going to ever pass the fucking Bechdel test, because it is a film about men and the condition of men. And I remember talking to somebody, they're like, well, what the fuck does The Big Lebowski have to do with men's rights? It has everything to do. It has to do with really the position of the modern man who is coming out of the age where he's needed in these traditional roles, and now these women are saying that they don't need them anymore, and they're just tossing them aside. And now you have, on the one hand, you have these very powerful women that are pulling the strings and controlling everything, and these men that are powerless, they're just trying to scramble to even try to control anything that these women are doing. Because even the actions of the trophy wife, the ex-porn star, is she's her actions are fucking pushing everything into play. She's doing everything. Okay, her owing money all over town brings the dude into everything. Her leaving at a moment's notice and going off to Las Vegas to party with some friends or whatever causes the fucking nihilists to take advantage of the situation and go in and say, okay, we kidnapped Bunny, but they hadn't at all, and everything was caused by her fucking actions, and the other things are caused by Maud being the polar opposite of Bunny. There's this crazy fucking I don't think she's a sex positive feminist because she believed. Huh?
Sorry, Karen?
New agey. She's a new agey kind of.
Yeah.
I
got sort of a I don't know, like a sort of a bitter fruit vibe off of her. Perhaps bitter fruit is not the right way. It's just sort of like a slightly sex negative vibe off of her, but I don't know for sure.
Well, she actually manipulated the dude into getting her pregnant or having sex with her for the reason to try and conceive a child. And
that's somebody who she knew wouldn't care enough to want to be involved.
Yeah, but manipulated child.
And let's not forget the fact that the dude shared the same last name, Lebowski. So, it was an obvious, intentional thing that she did there. She wanted progeny to carry on the Lebowski name because of her father, because of the influence that he had, and with no care to the man or to the dude, as we shall say. That did not matter. Her goal, first and foremost, was to find someone to have a child to carry on a name so that she, as she in the movie described herself as, being in control of the financial status of the family name, that was her goal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm actually going to disagree with Rachel a little bit. At least maybe we can come to have a discussion on this.
Okay.
The blasé attitude of the dude to his progeny, as it were. I don't know if that would be as I don't know if you could say that he's a complete survivor of the situation, but I didn't find that. I felt that was sort of a sour note, that he would just inseminate this woman and just walk. He would abide by her basically sperm jacking him and.
Well, what can he really do, though, in that situation, though? Because he knows that she owns everything, that she's in complete control of the situation. And even if he wanted to be involved with it, it just would not happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's sort of... for me, the scene where he just sort of accepts it as, just a... That would be the moment where maybe fighting back might be a more of a men's issues situation. And I understand that he's the dude, he abides, but at some point, you have to deal with the fact that she's having a kid for her own selfish reasons, and it's not fair to the kid, And to me, him just rolling over in that situation, sort of, and I don't know if that was a. The thing is that I always find these subtle flaws in a lot of filmmaking and writing now, where because of my interest in men's rights, sort of informed the way I view this stuff. Now I can understand that he doesn't fight because the automatic assumption that a woman will make a good caretaker, regardless of how jealous or how selfish she is in choosing to have a child. And choosing to exploit a man's sexuality in order to get her ends, there's still that uncritical acceptance of that kind of a situation by society. So it's not like I'm saying that it's a massive flaw. It's just something that I think that was not carefully considered by the creators of the dude.
Go on, Lauren.
I mean, what I'm thinking is that, there are so many men that have kids, and I hear the argument all the time that, I just want to give forth my legacy. And, really, what legacy do you have if you have to work 2, 3, 4 jobs to support these children? Obviously, you don't have a legacy. And the dude did, throughout the entire movie, he did nothing but lay around in his pajamas and drink White Russians. So is that a legacy that you want to leave, behind you? It boggles my mind that this character would be so nonchalant. Now, take into the account the fact that the dude was the dude and he just abides. That's fine, but to be so nonchalant about letting your seed go, I think is so very prevalent in today's society. And it really has something to say about, the guys that think this way, that I'm impregnating a woman so my name can carry on. Well, guess what? If your last name is Jones, there's a million Jones out there.
Well, it was, I think it was the female character, Maud, who wanted her name Lebowski to carry on. Well, that was a really good point.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
To me, the thing about it is it did bother him initially. You saw that he's like the moment she's...
Oh, no, he recoiled. He absolutely had a moment of, what the fuck? But he recovered from that within the same instance that it took him to realize that, guess what? This woman is trying to have your child. So...
well, the thing is...
He's also on a lot of pot, and the thing about it is it's almost like he's living through, I guess, God, the base desires. It's like food, bowling, or like okay, food, something to do, and then sex, and now it's all satisfied. Okay, there are flaws to the dude, and here's the thing: the dude can only really exist in this universe. Outside that universe, it's just a lot of this stuff is just not going to work. But that's the thing. That's the beauty. They said he is perfect for his time and place, meaning that everything just sort of aligned perfectly for that sort of thing just to work out. And that's acknowledged throughout, that this is, something that under normal circumstances would never ever happen. And that's why it was told in this sort of legendary sort of way. Like, I'm about to sit there and tell you the legend of the dude. And this crazy ass story that happened. Right. But, there are flaws. But that's the thing, though. If he wasn't flawed, we would sit there and think, oh my gosh, this guy is a superhero.
Well, I wouldn't say that the character, like, what it strikes me as is unconsidered writing. It strikes me as lazy writing. Because they're relying on tropes and emotional beliefs that are completely unexamined. And for me, that just looks like a piece of, like a beautifully, lushly painted oil painting with, a couple inches of nothing but white matte. It's just not considered. And that's my opinion. Otherwise, I enjoy The Big Lebowski, but I recognize the limitations of story writers as they are. There are some blind spots that they have, and one of them is this idea that, men sort of have the right to get upset about their sexuality being exploited, that it does have some value. But then again, the dude is the dude. It's possible that he just slowly slipped into his kid's life and eventually played a role. It's because he abides, and somehow he gets through these things, and he gets what he wants in the end.
What makes me sort of okay with it is part of me feels like that he would sort of the child that they would end up having would be sort of the best of both worlds and learn a bit from either side. Or maybe I think the thing that would piss off Maude the most is if the child ended up exactly like Lebowski.
Well, I really think that she had no, in going into the whole procreation that she had in mind, I really don't think that was a thought to her at all, which says a lot about, women today. They do not care about who is fathering their child. They only care that they are having a child. Okay? They only think about their own importance when it comes to fathering another human being. It does not matter if the child that you are creating is with a degenerate, as some would classify the dude as being. They only care about their own, they're in a bubble. They really only care about what they want to see, and how that will affect them and benefit them.
And it's really that doesn't make a very good parent. No. Karen, you've been suspiciously quiet.
No,
that's sort of scaring me.
I've just been listening. See, I haven't.
Yeah, you've been abiding. You've been abiding.
I have. I've been that's just like your opinion, man.
Yeah. You want to make something out of it.
Like, everything's a fucking travesty with you, man.
Everything is a fucking travesty.
Fuck, man.
It's fuck. Let's go bowling, Karen.
You know what?
Only bowling can solve the world's ills. Let's all go bowling.
I hate to tell you this. I rarely bowl, but when I do, I drink Dos Sakes. I don't know.
I don't know Lois Bowl.
She's the world's most interesting woman.
Oh gosh, we need to do a parody of that. Totally.
Oh my god, I'm on it.
But no. One of the things that I loved about the Big Lebowski is that he just doesn't seem to care. He's almost childlike. He's extremely narrowly focused on just sort of his very, very mundane life, and it's just everything else is superfluous. Everything else, including once he realizes that this woman has basically impregnated herself with his seed. He just kind of he just deals with it and moves on. I think the biggest panic that he had was probably dropping the freaking roach in his lap while he was backing out of the driveway in that whole movie. After he gets roofied and shit, right?
His car, man, his car.
It's like they fucking killed his car, man. Oh gosh. Oh, also, wait, the fucking ferret that got thrown in the bathtub while he was smoking a joint. And nice varmint.
Flipping out too. But he's just so relaxed, and I just there is something to say for just being able to take everything in stride, and he has his little blow ups. Especially when, what's his name, dumps the coffee can of ashes and they all blow in his face.
Walter.
But at the same time, it's just he just abides, and he doesn't care that he uses bad language and the whole bit.
And I think that has a lot to speak to the males in our society, where they just don't care. They go about life and it's just all fun and games until shit gets real,
But even I don't, just an adventure. I mean, that to Lebowski, and then he's so oblivious to certain things. Remember when what's his name? He's like, dude, I'm just wondering, why'd you have to cuss so dang much? He's like, what the fuck you talking about, man?
Yeah, that's my favorite line. It's like, dude, what? Do you have to use so many cuss words?
Well, here's the thing about men having I guess a rudderless life, and the reality is that they, like Rachel was saying, they had roles that men had roles that they were expected to fulfill and got some recognition for, and then those roles were taken away. And there's nothing left, but we don't give them the same sense of value that women had. That's really what encapsulates it. And for me, as you have that critique of all of these sort of impotent, or according to the previous conception of masculinity, these guys who would be considered impotent, the guy who doesn't provide for his wife and his daughter, the guy who doesn't have a job, by the traditional conception of manhood, they're losers, right? Right. But the reality is that women have taken this role away from them and have accused them of abusing the women through this role of provider and protector. So this role is now wrong for men, and in response, they become rudderless, like the dude. But at the same time, we say that men have no value as providers and protectors of the people we think have value, which is women, and we don't give men their own innate value. And part of that would be the value of men's sexuality, the value of their ability to be fathers and to take care of children, and say that has value to children, and it does. It has a lot of value to children. So the role of father isn't just inseminating. So what's interesting is that throughout this entire video, the entire movie has this really a strong discomfort, or like just with the idea of traditional masculinity, but it also can't seem to bridge the gap to a masculinity which maybe, sees men as having value simply for their biological role in creating children, and healthy children, like mentally healthy children, raising children that are well fathered. We can't because the dude just sort of just doesn't seem to care about that aspect of being a man and raising a child. Not necessarily protector and provider of women, but a provider of the kind of nurturing that men give to children and the kind of protection that men give to children, which could constitute a new kind of identity for men around their biological role as fathers, which is it's not unique to human beings, but it is a very human trait to have that kind of paternal investment. And obviously, the statistics are in when it doesn't exist, problems happen, right? So there's this discomfort. They're critiquing that old traditional role. They're looking at that rudderless dude and saying, well, this is a way to deal with that loss of the old traditional role. But ultimately, in the end, there's that discomfort. He's not really establishing any kind of value. He's just rudderless, you know.
And maybe that's overall the message of all this. And here's the thing, though. There's a moment in the movie where you have a huge contrast between Jeffrey Lebowski, the millionaire, and the dude, and they're sitting there, and Lebowski, the millionaire, is sitting there. He's like, "What makes a man, like Mr. Lebowski? Is it doing all this other stuff, or like whatever?" He goes into it about. Is it about doing the difficult thing? And he's like, dude, he's like, I don't know. He's like, I was like, yeah, that and a set of testicles is like basically you just have to be a man. You don't have to do all this extra shit, all these things that are expected of you to be a man. It's just they're defining you through your tasks instead of just being, whereas women just have to be. But they don't allow that for men, and all the other people, all the other men in this that are okay, but they're still playing into the egos of other guys or all these other things that are being set into motion by these crazy powerful goddesses. So there you go.
Yeah, I think ultimately it can be just fun though, because it's a funny, hilarious movie, right?
Yeah.
Everything is a travesty to you, Walter.
Yeah, exactly.
But but it is also I think it has some deeper questions. I don't know, maybe it's a situation where the Coen brothers just didn't know how to resolve it, and were honest about not resolving it, and just wanted to present the question: what is it? What is masculinity now?
Yeah. Exactly, and as opposed to so let's take the millionaire Jeffrey Lebowski, who was ridden to a wheelchair and not able to really function within society, whereas the dude was and I wouldn't say that he's functioning in society, but just the juxtaposition of how the dude was there, and he could do this and he could do that, and he could go find his wife that was supposedly kidnapped, whereas Jeffrey Lebowski was ridden to this wheelchair and in his masculinity only frozen in the capacity of what he could do, with the money that he quote unquote supposedly had.
Let's clarify for a moment, though. He was trying to embezzle from his own company by using the whole kidnapping as. Oh, right. Okay, I wasn't sure whether that or not that was clear.
Right. Yeah. No. But he used that. He used a person, the dude, who was fully functional as a person to try to,
be his avatar in the world?
I'm sorry?
Be his avatar, be his extension in the world?
Yeah, exactly. And, so what a person he chose to do this, if only it was for namesake. But the millionaire who had everything, used a person who had nothing to try to, recoup what the millionaire thought was most important in his life.
Yeah, it is. It's got a lot of interesting questions. But I think we have to move on to Ghostbusters just because we're really running out of time. And I know, yes,
let loose the mic.
Let loose the mic.
Release him,
Mike. Are you ready? Are you ready to be let loose, Mike?
Hello.
Is it Mike's time to shine?
Yes,
Oh,
it's Mike's time to shine. Go for it. Go for it.
Go.
Okay, so in the summer, in the summer of 1984, right, the dawn of the equinox of the 80s. Some men named Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Bill Murray made a movie that no one has ever disliked. 8-year-olds love it for exactly the same reason 50-year-olds love it. It's fun, it's simple, it's compelling, it's inventive. It has the holiest of holy grails. It does not take itself too seriously in any detail except the fun. That movie was Ghostbusters. There was a cartoon series. It ran 47 episodes. It was awesome. There were Ghostbuster toys, cheap plastic money grabbers. But no one cared, because an idea that doesn't take itself too seriously is fun. In the late 90s, the Ghostbusters returned with a cartoon called Extreme Ghostbusters that no one remembers, in which the new Ghostbusters were all of college age. One was a woman, one was a black guy, one was a dude in a wheelchair, and one was a lazy, ill-tempered, straight, white, cisgendered male. But that was not PC enough for the future of fun. What if they were all women, said someone at Sony, and apparently no one could think of a response. Writers of NBC's The Office, Gene Stupnitsky and Lee Eisenberg supplied the original script. On board to direct is Paul Feig, director of Bridesmaids, one of the only high-grossing films of the past decade that wasn't a sequel, a remake, or an adaptation. So if we grant that what we have here is a team that can take left-wing Hollywood women and make them as funny and memorable as Bill Murray, what we are still left with is the question of why, and indeed why not, and indeed why is losing and why not is winning. Why not remake The Craft with boys? Why not remake Backdoor Bitches 1 through 76 with an all-male cast? And will women ever understand what it is about wearing one-piece earth-tone boiler suits that makes them so damn sexy? Now, I have another few minutes on this. Can I carry on?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Sounds like you're sorting through some bottles there, Mike.
That's not me. That's someone else. I'm
All
in
right.
the zone. Right. There are 3 good reasons the Ghostbusters were male. Firstly, men came up with the idea. Get over it. It's like when I say... it's like when people whine about Jews running the media. Yeah, sorry, they have original ideas. Notice the 2 biggest religions in the world are just sequels to their religion. That's longevity. I don't know, maybe circumcision really does give you superpowers. Very sorry for that. Secondly, the Ghostbusters are male because they're supposed to represent exterminators. Stylistically, they do resemble exterminators. And I don't think there are many exterminators who are female. I don't mean to profile out of the blue here, but as far as I know, women aren't well known for their methodical reactions to wild vermin. I mean, am I being a patriarchal shitlord for saying that, or is that kind of biological truth? There are evolutionary reasons men run towards danger and women run away from it, right?
Well, Mike, you're totally a shitlord, but we love you for it, so continue.
But so if it were possible to exterminate ghosts, it would probably be men doing it, since it's been men's job to do the exterminating of anything that needs exterminating since the dawn of whatever. And here's where we come to the third reason, and this is something I've only just realised. The Ghostbusters are men to balance against the pre-established typecasting, and the pre-established typecasting is there are ghosts in Ghostbusters. I mean, by pitch, there must be ghosts. And who is normally typecast in the role of ghost? Women. Most ghosts are women. Am I right? I mean, most, quote, ghost sightings, end quote, are female. And they're all Caucasian. So, if you believe in ghosts, you have to ask yourself, what is it about white women that makes them so inclined to hang around in the netherworld scaring people? But if, like me, you don't believe in ghosts, it's not in the least bit mysterious. We see white people because paleness is associated with death. That's pretty obvious. But we, of course, see women because women are associated with victimhood. And we're scared of victimhood. It's not the ghost itself that frightens you. Ghosts don't hurt people. Even if you believe in ghosts, you have to admit they've never actually physically done any damage to anyone. Ever. So what scares you about ghosts is not what they're going to do to you, but what scares you is what they are going through. The very idea that a human soul could be suspended in the netherworld is what terrifies us, because that could be us. So it's your brain projecting your self-image, distorted to look as helpless and as vulnerable as it can. And if that means seeing yourself as a white woman from Victorian England, so be it. It's your semi-conscious brain cooking up a hallucination, remember? It can cook up whatever it likes. If you're a white woman, what's on your mind more than anything is what could happen to white women. And if you're a white man, what's on your mind more than anything is what can happen to white women. So that's why the Ghostbusters are male. Because it's quite possible that the very existence, the meta-existence of ghosts is in fact a hallucinatory manifestation of our culture's desperate need to save white women from a world of trouble that they are not in fact in. I think I'm done.
Okay.
There is no Rachel, only Zool.
Yeah. And speaking of ghosts,
I'm the gatekeeper. Are you the keymaster?
speaking of ghosts, Karen is now dead to us because she has left for work. So
Aw,
Karen,
she's a traitor.
she is now a ghost. She's a ghost. Well, she's traitorous us all by becoming a ghost of sorts, as it were. Yeah, that's an interesting interpretation, Mike.
Allison, are you a god?
I can't remember the next line.
Not this life. Sorry, maybe previous one.
And die.
If someone asks you if you are a god, you say yes.
Okay, so I think that's a really interesting interpretation of the phenomenon of what makes ghosts frightening. The idea that of what happened to them rather than what they can do to us. And
Yeah.
it's possible, although I do know that sometimes ghosts just in and of themselves are scary.
Has anyone ever seen a male black ghost? Write to me, honest to God.
No,
I don't think anyone
never.
ever has. And
No.
that might not be a coincidence, is
I
what I'm
don't-
saying.
Like, I don't remember. Maybe once in Supernatural. I don't remember. I'm still watching that show.
Although I have to say that the ghosts in Ghostbusters, they were female and they were pretty
Yeah,
aggressive.
the first one that turned up, it was a female. The whole get her thing was.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how they had to introduce it.
Yeah, it was. But the thing is that she turned into this sort of monster that scared the crap out of them.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's
Of course they would be frightened. She's a ghost and she's a woman.
yeah.
Scare the shit out of
Interesting
me.
thing, though, Dana
She did that
represents.
because they were assholes and being loud in the library.
Yeah.
Right.
Remember they tried to rush her and they were all screaming at the same time.
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
Yeah, she was
yeah.
provoked.
And-
Okay.
Or here's a final thought, and I wanted to mention it. Dana is the typical 80s 90s portrayal of the single independent woman going out there doing the work, living on her own, making it work, and she is not strong enough on her own to battle the crazy supernatural terrors. The only thing that can defeat her is the evil supernatural terrors that be.
Right.
It's kind of an interesting archetype situation there.
Well, I mean, the original Ghostbusters, it really was, the hero, villain, and the women. Oh, actually, I guess Zool sort of appeared as a woman.
Yeah.
I'm not exact. Was there a reason why, or it was just hand waved?
probably
Oh,
because
Zool
that's
can look
what-
like anything he wants to, or it wants to.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was because that was what they felt comfortable with. And it was like reading off of their mental brainwaves of what they felt comfortable with. And that's.
Oh, that was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. I'm talking actually the original manifestation.
I know. But I'm saying I think I think that's what Zool chose to come as, sort of.
Yeah, but as a scantily clad woman.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, why not, right?
Because people would feel threatened by that. They're like, oh, I don't know if I can beat this attractive woman. I don't know if I should probably be firing my...
So Zool is actually aware of gynocentrism.
I think it's something to do with juxtaposition or something.
Well, yeah, but the thing is that now we're saying that now we're proposing that the ultimate baddie, who's like this ancient evil, is actually aware. Well, that's interesting. Is he's aware of human or it is aware of human psychology enough to appear as a somewhat vulnerable female, although she looks a little spooky.
Within the movie universe, yes.
Woman, basically sexy, so they're less likely to fire on her.
Yeah, so it's the Zool is genre savvy. It understands the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's even getting more creepy.
Okay, she's strong. She's a harbor chick.
Sorry?
Sorry, it's a quote. It's fine. It's cool. She's strong. She's a harbor chick. Sorry.
I don't get the quote, but yeah.
That was the second movie. Statue of Liberty. Mm-hmm. She can take it. She's a harbor chick.
Well, I think once you get past the the second or past the first movie, you can start to see the influence of Hollywood and how that has to do with anything. I mean, I'm reading here. Okay, Zool is assumed to be female due to being known as the gatekeeper and possessing a female host instead of a male host. So Zool, in essence, is supposed to be a female. And I kind of almost liken that to the Devil's Advocate, where the demon is a woman. And it takes a man to come in and repress her.
Well, one of the demons was a woman. The other was Rick Moranis. It's a comedy film. Let's not forget.
And Gozer is the one we're talking about. Yeah, we're really talking about Gozer.
Yeah, you're right. Gozer. Well, Zool was a woman, I think.
Yeah.
But Gozer was
he's the keymaster.
But Gozer wasn't.
To summon Gozer.
To summon Gozer. Gozer the Gozerian, who appeared as a woman, who may have had an understanding of human psychology that exceeded a lot of humans.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, James is getting pretty frantic, and I think although we haven't gotten into the silly place this time, we didn't actually manage to sublimate into the silly place. I do feel that we managed a lot of geeky flailing, so a lot of nerdy flailing of limbs and flailing of lips. So I think that's a success in and of itself to get to the flailing place.
Yes.
Let's pat ourselves on the back, and we also killed Karen, so that can always be considered.
2 in the box.
I don't want to call that a success. I don't want
to be fast and be slow. Sorry,
but she always does, resurrect herself stronger. So there's that. I mean, saying that killing Karen is a success. That sounds bad, but be not afraid because she always comes back from the grave like the phoenix. She always rises from her own ashes, much stronger and renewed and refreshed. So let's just fight. Just James, just shit. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. James, just end it somewhere because I'm just gonna